right, everybody, welcome to AstroTalk and Tea. My name is Kelsey, and at the beginning of each new astrological season, I do these videos to discuss the traits and qualities of the sign that we're moving into and to talk about what we can all be doing during the next month to best utilize the energy that is coming to the fore. And today we're here to talk about Cancer season. Today is the summer solstice, which is exciting. And the summer solstice always marks the first day of Cancer season, when the sun transitions from Gemini, where it's been for the last month, into Cancer for the upcoming month. So Cancer season is going to run from June 20th to July 21st. And there is a lot going on in this season. So I'm going to try to be as concise as I can. I have my notes in front of me to make sure I don't forget things, but we also know sometimes I get a little long-winded. So we'll see how long this video ends up being. But I want to first start with just general characteristics of the sign of Cancer. So in traditional astrology, Cancer is often associated with the archetype of the mother. And what I mean by that is, the qualities of nurturing, being deeply caring, loving, protective are all associated with Cancer. Cancer is a water sign, so people with a lot of Cancer energy in their charts typically tend to feel emotions very deeply. They have a lot of emotional depth, and they're very sensitive, both to the energies and emotions around them, and sensitive in terms of easy to get their feelings hurt. They're very perceptive about things that are happening around them, even things that they can't necessarily see, but things that they feel. They're highly intuitive and very empathic as well. Their heart bleeds for those around them who are going through a tough time, things like that. And I think because of that heightened emotionality, Cancer people can tend to be a little bit more introverted, or they just prefer being with a smaller, trusted, familiar group of people than out among the masses in large crowds and all that. That can be really overwhelming for people with strong Cancer energy, depending on what else is in a person's chart. But typically, they would tend to prefer small group, familiar, friends, family, etc. They're also very family oriented. Cancer as a sign is associated not just with family, but kind of this larger idea of your clan or your tribe, your people, so to speak. And oftentimes, Cancer energy can be very interested in family lineage or family ancestry, or kind of keeping the traditions and the customs of the family and the family culture alive. Cancer people are extremely committed. They're very devoted. They're loyal. They're very trustworthy. They just truly, they care so deeply, which can be really overwhelming sometimes. Cancer energy is also highly creative. I think it's awesome when they are feeling a lot of emotion to be able to direct that emotion into their creative pursuits. And just whenever too they have that emotional stability and security, they can also really utilize a heightened state of creativity in however they wish. Interestingly too, Cancer as an astrological sign is ruled by the moon. So people with strong Cancer energy in their charts are typically more affected by the movement of the moon and its cycles than other signs might be. So if you are a Cancer and you are familiar at all, I'm actually wearing my moon cycle tank top tonight. But if you track the movement of the moon through the different signs throughout the month, I would be curious, do you notice yourself really being affected by its movements, its energies as it goes through all 12 signs of the zodiac or not? Couple things for Cancer energy to watch out for. Cancers do love the familiar comforts. They love home. They love the idea of security and feeling safe and taken care of. And so one thing to watch out for there is just that this need for security and familiarity and comfort doesn't turn into fear, fear of risks, of putting yourself out there to achieve your goals, fear of new experiences, fear of the unknown. And secondarily, we want to make sure that love of security in different ways doesn't get us stuck in pattern. So emotional pattern usually is what I mean by that. So just making sure that your need for the familiarity doesn't mean that you kind of get stuck in repetitive ways of expressing emotion, and that you don't get stuck in repetitive patterns with others in that sense either. Becoming overwhelmed by emotion, that can happen very easily, especially if a person with a lot of Cancer energy is soaking up emotion from everyone around them as well. So they do have to watch out for like a little bit of moodiness. Sometimes they can swing somewhat rapidly from highs to lows. They should watch out for, possessiveness is another one. Because Cancers are so loving and caring and protective, we just want to make sure that that you don't smother the people that you love so much. Give them a little room to breathe. And then lastly, kind of with that emotionality and that sensitivity, just the idea of grudge holding. I think sometimes, Cancers, when they get hurt, when they feel vulnerable, they retreat into their shell, right? Think of the crab is the symbol that represents the sign of Cancer, and it has this hard shell on the outside, but it's very soft on the inside. So sometimes, if a Cancer feels hurt, they'll kind of retreat inside themselves, and instead of expressing and communicating about what happened, they might tend to hold this grudge, and it just kind of builds up over time. So just being careful of those types of things. But again, really focusing on the positive qualities of Cancer is this nurturing, this loving and caring archetype, this idea of family and clan and home and security, all those good things. Now, knowing that those are some of the main characteristics of Cancer energy, what does that mean we should all be doing over the next 30 days to utilize this energy to its fullest? And I've highlighted actually 6 different things here this time, but I'll go through each of them quickly. So the first one is the idea of self-care. This is extremely important. I think, and I'm not talking about self-care go get a $100 massage or something like that. I'm talking about small, consistent acts of self-care that you can do regularly, if not on a daily basis. Something like cutting your nails, taking the time to comb your hair and really enjoying that experience. Using a really nice lotion to moisturize after you take a bath or a shower. Cooking yourself a nice meal when you have time one evening. Those kinds of things are what I mean by small acts of self-care that really add up. And I think additionally, rest is an extremely important part of self-care that we often forget about. And lastly, allowing others to care for you. I think Cancer energy is so much about giving so much of themselves to the people they love, but then let those people love and care for you in return. So whether that's your friends, your partner, other family members, your children, allow people to show up and to care for you. Second thing is nurture. We talked about nurturance being a big trait of Cancerian energy. And of course, nurturing the self is number one, that idea of self-care. But also, I encourage you, find something external to nurture, okay? And this can be a friend or a family member or a child, but it can also be a creative project. It can be a plant that you have in your home. It can be a pet that you have. There's lots of different things where you could put that nurturing energy, and that will be something that feels really good over this next month. Third thing is the home, which is very ironic considering now many states are starting to open up. Some are fully open, some are slowly opening, but it's this idea that we've been home for quite a few months now and people are ready to get out. But Cancerian energy is really focused on the idea of home. So I want you to think about, where are the physical spaces that you feel most nurtured, that you feel accepted, that you feel supported, in which you feel like you belong. Hopefully that is the physical space in which you live. For some people, it might not always be. But really spending a lot of time in those spaces that help you feel those particular ways. And also, what can you do to make a change in your physical home or your office, let's say, or other places where you spend a lot of time? How could you make changes or tweaks so that those places might feel a little bit more nurturing, a little bit more caring and supportive of you from an emotional soul standpoint? The fourth thing is alone time. As we talked about, Cancer energy, they need alone time to recharge. They can be more introverted sometimes. So I encourage you, over the course of the next month, you may feel oh, it's summer, it's party time, we're finally leaving the house, we can have, gatherings of 10 people or whatever the guidelines are in your particular state. But just know that if you feel the call to be alone and to withdraw during this time, there is nothing wrong with that. And I just encourage you to honor that and to go with it if that's the feeling that shows up for you at any point in time. The fifth thing I have on our list that we can all do is I put examining your roots. So we talked about Cancer being associated to family, to clan, also to like family lineage and ancestry. So this can be a really good time to kind of examine where you come from. Examine what was going on in your family of origin. What were some of the, patterns that existed there? What were maybe some of the traumas that happened there? Is this something that's been happening generationally in your family or in your lineage going back in time? It can be a really good time to examine all those ideas and to look at, how do you want to initiate healing in your own self that can help to break patterns and traumas that may have either happened directly to you or that may have happened just through the generations in your family. Those things, they make an imprint and they do get passed down through different generations. So I really want you to focus on this time, in addition to your self-care, what do you think is calling to be healed within you that may also connect to something in your roots, in your ancestry as well. And the last thing is the idea of radical empathy. And I borrowed this from the Cosmic Feminist. You can find her on Instagram. I just found her very recently, and she did a post on this idea of radical empathy. And I'm going to read it here to make sure I quote it correctly. But she says, radical empathy is striving to understand the feelings and experiences of those around you while actively working to improve their realities. So I think in terms of Cancer season, love, nurturing, caring, protection, radical empathy is also a great thing that we can all be practicing during this time. Moving on to the other things like stones and herbs and yoga that can support us during this next 30 days. I'll begin with herbs, and I'm just going to go through these quickly. Chamomile is great, helps us to relax if we're feeling like emotionally or energetically overwhelmed. Burdock root is an excellent one, not only to help the free flow of emotions, but also burdock can help us create some emotional stability if we do happen to be feeling maybe a little emotionally out of control. Ginger is a great one for, it's warming and just very gently stimulating. That can help get our emotions moving. I actually have my ginger tea tonight. And the last herb is cypress. Now, I just want to give the caveat. Cypress, I think typically you could buy the herb and make a tea out of it. It is not for women who are pregnant or who are breastfeeding, so just want to make sure and give that disclaimer up front. But cypress can be great for regulating mood swings, and it can also be good for helping to calm over emotionality. So chamomile, burdock, ginger, cypress could all be herbs to consider during this next month. Stones that can be helpful. The first one is amethyst, which is great for emotional healing and growth in a lot of different ways. The next one is kunzite or kunzite. I don't know exactly how to pronounce it, but it's Kunzite. And this one is great for strengthening unconditional self-love, making sure that before we put all our focus on loving and caring for everybody else, we are loving and caring for ourselves first and foremost. And the third stone that I'm going to offer for this month is rhodochrosite, which is good for helping us go back into childhood memories and healing emotional wounds that come from the younger parts of our lives, but helping us to do that in a way that doesn't feel quite so intimidating or overwhelming. In terms of yoga and breath work for this season, the mantra I'm going to give you is easy does it. I think there's going to be a lot of emotional and energetic ups and downs. It's going to feel like we're riding some waves here in the next 30 days. So just please do not push yourself. I would not necessarily recommend any high intensity stuff unless you're really craving it. Then of course go for it. But I don't want anybody to be forcing themselves into anything this month. This is about yin yoga, restorative yoga, very gentle flow. It's about breath work that helps you to get calm and helps you to kind of find balance in your emotions, in your mind, in your nervous system. So that can be alternate nostril breathing. That could be just taking even breaths. So 4 or 5 counts on the inhale, same 4 or 5 counts on the exhale, and just slow, steady breath. That's definitely my recommendation for how to frame our yoga and our breath work during Cancer season. Now, moving on to the highlights of this season, astrologically speaking, we have a lot going on. 2020 is the year. I was telling a friend the other day, like, normally as from an astrological perspective, I can be like, well, we have this tough, month or 2 months, but then it's like a great couple months after that. In 2020, I'm not going to sugarcoat it, just really does not have any periods of time that are like, oh, it's going to be easy breezy. It's like, this is hard shit, but it's good because it's forcing us to learn, to grow, to evolve. So it's always good. But I'm just going to go in calendar order. So I'm starting with today/tonight. In the wee hours of tonight, which would technically be June 21st, is going to be the new moon, which happens to be a solar eclipse this month in the sign of Cancer. And it happens right at the beginning of Cancer, 0 degrees. So if you know where 0 degrees of Cancer is in your personal chart, take a look at that later as well. This is a huge energy, and honestly, I think it feels kind of heavy. It is being squared by Mars, which is very frustrating, and it is it's in conjunct to Saturn, which is also, it's just like this energy of like, I'm down in the dumps, but I'm kind of mad and frustrated. Like, I want to get going on something, but I feel stymied. I feel blocked. I don't know what to do, so I wouldn't say, like with some eclipses, it's just this huge, like, oh, kind of energy. And this one's a big energy, but doesn't quite feel that great, I don't think. So I'm really recommending during this time, like, introspection. Take that alone time if you need it, if you can create that time and space for yourself. Like, don't force yourself to do anything. Just be very present with yourself in the moment. Be very present with whatever emotions are coming up for you. But also, I'm going to definitely encourage you in the next couple days, write some intentions. Eclipses are powerful energetic portals that open, and then whatever energy is planted at this time kind of unfolds over a period of 6 months or so. So, whatever intentions you want to set around all those themes we talked about earlier, about self-care, about having something to nurture, about our home space, about radical empathy, about taking a look at our roots and figuring out what needs to be healed and what patterns could be broken, try to set intentions around any or all of those things that we discussed earlier. The next thing that we have also going on at this time is Mercury Retrograde, everybody's favorite. Mercury Retrograde started on June 18th. It will come out of retrograde on July 12th. So we have these couple weeks here, and I'm not going to go into all the things of Mercury Retrograde because you can Google that, but a couple key things that I wanted to point out is that Mercury is retrograding in the sign of Cancer. So we have this really heightened focus on Cancer themes and energy. So Mercury controlling our thinking processes and our speaking, it just shows that, our brains will be thinking very emotionally over the next several weeks. This is okay. In fact, this could be great. It's just important not to let emotions like overwhelm and overtake you. Additionally, we're going to be feeling, each of us, more sensitive during this period with Mercury retrograde in Cancer. And, we're going to be reviewing all of those Cancerian themes that have been echoed throughout this whole talk. It's just, that's what our minds are going to be focused on. That's what we're going to be thinking about. That's where we're going to put our mental energy. That's what we're going to want to be talking about. Also, if you know where Cancer falls in your chart, it can be good to see what house Mercury is retrograding in for you, because that can give you a little bit more information about what you need to be revisiting and rethinking during these next couple weeks. Really awesome thing, Venus, that planet, has been retrograde since May, but on June 25th, it comes out of retrograde and it's going to start moving forward again. So what that means is, I think as we come out of June, we're going to have a little bit more clarity on what we like, what we're attracted to, what we value, and why we like are attracted to or value those things. So getting some more clarity around that. And then, you know, for these last month or so, you know, in Venus retrograde, they always, I mean, it's kind of joking, but we say like, don't go for a totally new wardrobe or do anything new with your hair that you're not sure about. Don't make big purchases or investments because there might be some confusion, again, about what you're attracted to or why you like something. So if you've been waiting to do any of those things, after Venus moves forward, starting June 25th, could be a good time to come back to that with a clearer head on those issues. Interestingly, Mars is moving at the end of June. Mars has been in Pisces and it's going to move into the sign of Aries, which is good. Mars is very comfortable in the sign of Aries. I'm going to talk about this in future videos as well, because Mars is actually going to spend 6 months in the sign of Aries this year, from July until January, like January 6th or something of 2021, which is a very long time. We're going to be discussing the themes and energies that come up around that a lot moving forward, but just a heads up on that one. Then 4th of July, late at night, we have a full moon in Capricorn. It is a partial eclipse, I believe, but the eclipse definitely isn't as strong as like the one we have tonight on June 21st. But July 4th, very late at night, it's like 11:45 p.m. Central Time or something. We're going to have that full moon in Capricorn. And I really think this is going to be about the idea of letting go of rigidity. The full moon's going to receive a really nice trine from Uranus. And we know Uranus is always shaking things up. But because it's a nice angle, you know, like we won't feel, I don't think, emotionally chaotic about it necessarily. Like the shaking up that's going to happen, the letting go, will be a good thing. So, you know, that full moon being in Capricorn is all it is about. It's about structure. It's about hierarchy. It's about achievement. It's about success. It's about, you know, status and the symbols that represent all of those things. It's about, you know, order and authority. So we've had a lot happening in Capricorn just over the last several months. And so it's interesting having this full moon here. I think it's time for us to let go of some of those themes, or at least of the ways that they play out in a negative sense, and kind of embracing the other end of the spectrum, which is Cancer, which is what we're talking about this whole season, of like connection, emotional healing, you know, love and empathy for ourselves and for those around us, and kind of letting go of some of the rigidity of Capricorn to move a little bit more into those Cancerian themes. So I think we might see some of that stuff coming up around the full moon on the 4th of July. And last but not least, we have a second new moon in the sign of Cancer towards the later part of July. So that's pretty rare to have 2 new moons, because the solar eclipse of tonight is technically also a new moon, and we have a second new moon. They're both in the sign of Cancer, and that very rarely happens. So what I think is interesting about this is towards the later part of July, I think it's July 20th, we're going to get a redo. So like hopefully today, tonight, in the next couple of days, you're going to be setting intentions connected to Cancerian energy in this eclipse, and it's kind of like most of the 30 days is going to go by, and we're going to get a chance to, on July 20th, say, okay, how's that been going over the last month? Those intentions that we set, are we working with the universe to manifest those things, to co-create them? And if you feel like you've gotten a little off track, or you need to double down on that energy, you're going to get a second chance on July 20th, another new moon in Cancer, to kind of reaffirm the intentions that you set at the eclipse, or to perhaps set additional intentions to kind of keep yourself going on that path. So, you know, that new moon will have it has an opposition to Saturn. Saturn just fucking up all the new moons this month. So again, that energy is probably also going to feel a little frustrating, a little like a false start, a little like you want to be like more structured and disciplined, but you don't know how. And so just allow that energy to come up, and just know that you're going to double down on your intentions towards the later part of July once again. So that brings us to a close for this edition of Astro Talk and Tea. Thanks for joining me. And as always, if you have questions, you can email me. It's kelsey@theastroyogi.com. And you can also find me on Instagram. My handle is @the_astro_yogi. I wish you guys a great Cancer season.